Let's talk about the AEW ranking system, a ranking system that was introduced all the way back in 2019 when AEW first launched Dynamite, in a ranking system that got many fans talking and assuming that AEW would be more of a sports league than a professional wrestling sports entertainment company. And even though it seemed that way all the way back then, looking back on it right now, the ranking system is both useful and a big fat lie. Because back in 2010, if you recall, TNA Wrestling came up with a similar idea. They had a ranking system where fans could vote, among other things, on who would be able to challenge for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship at that time. It was an experiment that worked out for a little bit until Desmond Wolfe got himself to the top of that list, earning himself a title shot and losing in 3 minutes, more or less, to then TNA World Champion Rob Van Dam on an episode of Impact before we moved on to the pay-per-view main event, which was AJ Styles versus RVD for the world title. So obviously after that, TNA dropped those plans. They dropped their ranking system. It served a purpose all the way until Bound for Glory 2010, where we named a new world champion after RVD vacated the championship, and the rest is history. No more ranking system. We haven't seen any of that in TNA or Impact Wrestling since. And now AEW has 3 ranking systems. One for the men's division, one for the women's division, and one for the tag team division. Now the ranking system in itself, it's very simple. They basically calculate wins and losses on a year record basis for each of their superstars. Simple enough, right? Except that, with the women's division, it's pretty clear cut. They got one women's title. They got one tag team title for the tag team division ranking. For the men's side, it's a little bit more complicated because you got 2 champions. You got the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, and you got the TNT Champion, and you got 5 top-ranked contenders. So if we look at the ranking as it is, logic, common sense dictates that number 1 should be always challenging for the AEW World Championship. He should be the number 1 contender to the primary title, and number 2 on that ranking system should be the number 1 contender for the secondary title, the TNT Championship. More or less, that works out for AEW, but here's a problem that I have with that ranking system. Number 1, I've done some research, and first of all, there's really no explanation as to what the AEW rankings accumulate, or what they consist of, rather. It's basically just wins and losses, and pretty arbitrary when you think about it, because not every single superstar on their roster has the same amount of matches, and that's going to happen in a predetermined sport. That's bound to happen. And I doubt wrestling fans would be excited to see a season league system for AEW where we had week 1, week 2, week 3, where we had 20, 25, 30 different superstars, 30 different wrestlers going head to head on a weekly basis against different opponents. That sounds great on paper, that sounds great right now, but overall, and over years, it will get tiring. That's not what sports entertainment is all about. That's not what fans have been expecting of sports entertainment for the past 30, 35 years. So that idea is set aside. But here's the thing, like I said, they have to have a better system. For example, wins should matter more rather. Because in 2022, AEW is about to have 4 different shows. The first show, Dynamite and Rampage, then Dark Elevation, and then Dark. Not to mention, they're going to have specials on TV, on TNT in 2022. That's 5. Then you have pay-per-views. That's 6. And you mean to tell me, as a wrestling fan, as an AEW fan, that a win on Dark matters the same as a win on Dynamite, and that those two wins have the same importance as a win on an important AEW pay-per-view, it just doesn't make sense to me. Because Dark and Dark Elevation are YouTube shows. People barely watch that. People barely keep up with that. It's kind of like in the same vein of Goldberg's streak. It was pre-internet, the way we know it now. So each and every week, Goldberg would gain 10 to 15 wins after every Nitro. Basically because WCW just slid the information for the fans that, oh, Goldberg got those wins at house shows. And back then it was much difficult to keep up with that. So if I'm in a pitch meeting with AEW and we're talking about revamping the AEW ranking system, a promising concept that could still work, but it needs some work. So if I'm in a pitch meeting, I'm telling them, okay, if your least important show, and this is just my consideration, if your least important show is Dark, a win on that show gets you 1 point. A win on Dark Elevation gets you 2 points. A win on Rampage gets you 3 points, and a win on Dynamite gets you 5 points. And finally, a win on a special or a pay-per-view gets you 10 points. That's pretty clear-cut and simple, and it makes more sense. Furthermore, I keep tab on each and every single superstar on the AEW website. Tell me the record that Brian Pillman Jr. has in singles competition. Tell me the record that Red Velvet has in singles competition in the women's division. I know they're not a part of the ranking system week in and week out, but at least allow us, the fans, to keep up with every single match result and each of their records on a week-to-week basis throughout the entire year, so we know that there's no funny business. And I get it, that's a lot of work, that's a lot of money to throw at something that's, for the most part, worked up to this point. The AEW doesn't have to do that. But all I'm saying is it could help out, and it could really make your brand, stand out from other competition. Let's pretty much give us TNA's ranking system from 2010, add the points concept that TNA brought to their Bound for Glory series in 2011, and then just throw in some Major League Baseball, some NFL, some NBA, some Major League Soccer records and statistics at us through your website, and keep us engaged with their wins-loss records each and every week throughout the year. And I promise you the ranking system is going to last a lot longer than the shelf life it has right now. But those are just my thoughts, obviously. They're always just my thoughts. They're just an opinion. And they're obviously not going to listen to me. Look at me. I'm a complete nobody. I'm just spitting out my thoughts, my ideas, something that I would find interesting. And who knows? Who knows if it'll happen? But until then, I've been Alexis Carrillo. Tune in later tonight for another episode of Dynamite on TNT. One of the very last episodes. Not very last. Sorry about that. But we do have a limited amount of time of Dynamite on TNT, so check that out. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. See ya.